Welcome on in to this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by our friends over at DraftKings and DraftKings Best Ball in particular. If you haven't been diving in on those DraftKings Best Ball contests and tournaments, highly recommend that you do so. We'll be jumping into to some DraftKings strategy later on in the show. But Mario, we're into mid-July. The people are reporting to camps. Like things are happening. We got to jump right in here. So, as luck would have it, you have us covered. You have some stuff to look forward to in the job battle front going into the early part of training camp. I think this one won't surprise many people that we need to discuss this one a little bit, but unfortunately, Najee Harris suffering a superficial eye injury is how it's been reported
by his
during.
agent.
Yes, by his agent.
It's a little concerning, actually. I hope the team can look at Harris soon and make the same determination. I haven't read anything, John, about whether the agent is keeping Harris away from the team or something. I don't know why. Honestly, they haven't just seen him already. But could hold big sway with an important rushing workload.
Indeed. So with that in mind, that stemming from the 4th of July, what's kind of your read right now, and with this in mind and the potential huge sway. Are you kind of acting as if Omarion Hampton now is fully the guy and no longer is the 4th round too early to be taking him? Like now is it like I'm ready to go into the 3rd round for this guy?
That second part is a little tougher of a hurdle to clear, but at the very least, the drafts where I kind of felt like I was reaching for Hampton before this development, I'm not feeling so bad about the reach anymore. I'm feeling at the very least like, okay, I'm not doing any worse than a break even kind of thing at that price. But if Hampton does take a certain share of the snaps, and I don't know what that number would be, I think if as few as something like 550 snaps, a guy like Hampton could do a lot of damage from scrimmage. But depending on what goes on with this Harris thing, it's like Hampton could push something for more like 700 snaps. And in an offense like this, the carries per snap number is probably going to be higher than it is for running backs in almost any other offense. So when you take the potential usage of that sort, take an offensive line that's probably going to be better, is already looking, pretty good. Definitely probably the most enviable tackle tandem in the NFL. And then throw in the variable of Hampton's talent, what we have reason to suspect is a lot of talent. This could be a running back 1 in fantasy. There's no real hurdle to name if Harris isn't there to be the hurdle. And with a guy like Hampton, it's not just the volume, the efficiency and the explosiveness could be pretty high too. There could be big volume on high yards per carry, high yards per target. It's not just going to be, getting dragged along by the volume.
No, like there's more to it. It's just like we have, for lack of a better word, like the potential for supercharged value when it comes to Hampton, if he does have,
including passing downs. Yeah, I don't know if that's a concern people have, but it's the question of Hampton and the competition he might have had with Harris. It wasn't about, Harris is the one they trust to block and handle passing downs. It was more just like they wanted 2 starter caliber running backs, but Hampton is a 3-down guy. He could win Rookie of the Year over Ashton Genty. There's that kind of upside there.
Yeah, I was trying to postulate.
Not that I want to predict that, because I'm a huge fan of Genty, but they're both awesome.
Yeah, if I were to give you odds on who finishes higher in the RB pecking order this year, let's say Genty is still the favorite, but I'm giving you 2-1 on Hampton. Would you take that?
I don't know. I'm not a bettor, so I don't know how good of a deal that is, but I would do that. That might mean it's a dumb thing to do, though.
Well, I don't know. my sports book, I'm going bankrupt with the odds I'm putting out there, so that's okay. But just a thought experiment, if nothing else. We've got some Kamani Vidal love in the chat, though. Guy Uncle Ted.
I do think Vidal is good or has like some chance, but the Haskins thing, the Hassan Haskins thing, that's a little bit of a bummer. I do worry about Harbaugh and his fondness for his guys being an issue with getting rid of Haskins, who I think is awful. I don't think Haskins should be on a roster. So I'm rooting for Vidal, but Harris will be the running back 2 if he's available. And I guess I don't know. Maybe Vidal can rank ahead of Haskins for a running back 2 function if it needs to be filled because Harris isn't available. But if there's some dumb thing, maybe Harbaugh is thinking for his running back 3, like it's got to be a short yardage guy or whatever, and maybe that's why he rationalizes Haskins, because Haskins is huge if nothing else. But it's I think it's sooner a thing where if there's an opportunity for a guy like Vidal in theory to jump up and take something, it will probably just be Hampton taking that much more for himself.
Do you think that there's one thing that I've noticed, and I've frankly had this inclination to, especially on DraftKings where there's 20 rounds, throw a little 20th round Rocket Sanders in there? No?
I want to believe that's as much as I like Vidal, I would probably have ranked Sanders as a similar or higher graded prospect, but we'll see. He seems like one of those guys who would be easy to keep on a practice squad as long as you don't put any preseason tape of him running away from people. But yeah, if the Chargers do put tape of Sanders, turning the corner, splitting the safeties in the preseason, then he's not going to make it to the practice squad. But maybe that would be a good thing for him. Maybe there has to be an easier backfield, like Dallas. Why didn't Dallas sign him? He could probably just go start for Dallas. Anyway,
that's where Phil Maffa
there's going to be some
in.
fluctuation in a lot of backfields in training camp, and the Chargers between Harris, between the Rocket Sanders thing. There's a lot to keep an eye on there, even behind Hampton. But I just think Hampton's, there could be like 2,000 yards from scrimmage from this guy this year. If Harris is not available in training camp, I should say. But like if Harris is available, he'll play some amount, but I think it's going to be a low leverage, high leverage thing. Like if the game is out of hand, then sure, Harris, why not? Who cares? But if it matters at all who gets the ball on this play, it's Hampton.
And in regards to Harris, are you just like straight up not drafting him until we know more?
I was not drafting him after the draft, the NFL draft, as it were, and I don't know how to quantify something like this. Maybe there's someone who has enough inside info. Maybe someone who knows Harris or his agent knows enough to put like a responsible probability variable on his availability or whatever. But it's I don't know how you get anywhere near it. It seems to me like it's probably best to exercise caution.
I would think so as well. Unfortunately, now it just seems like a great guy, even though he played for like the 2 teams I hate the most. But
like if he falls like way, if you're in like the 18th round, I guess I can't really tell you not to. It's like
sure,
probably not getting anything from that pick anyway. But I just don't know how to advise on it. It doesn't seem like it's advisable.
No, it is not until we know a little bit more. Let's move on to the other backfield that has seemingly, unfortunately, gotten some topsy-turviness to it. I don't know how to frame this one. It sucks.
I had a bunch of Kingston Judkins shares before this.
I did too. And I had a lot of Jerome Ford in the pre-draft best ball streets, nice. and I was like, oh well, those teams are dead already. Great, but now they seem to be alive once again. But what can you tell us about this Kinchan Judkins situation, and like how much time could he theoretically miss? We know that the wheels of justice can turn fairly slowly in this league. We've seen Jordan Addison have stuff hang over him. We've seen Rashee Rice, but that those are different types of charges than what we're looking at when it comes to Judkins. However,
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know enough about the subject to say. The defensive tackle the Browns drafted from Ohio State last year in the second round, Michael Hall, he had some off season. I think it was before the season too, like between the draft, in other words, and before the season. But I'm going to try to look into this. Yeah, it was August 13th that Hall was arrested for a domestic violence thing. So he ended up on that one list. Sorry, I can't remember
The
what
commissioner's like restricted list or something.
Yeah, something of the exempt list or whatever. And he ended up missing the first 5 games, but then played in week 6. So I don't know the nature. Like, I don't know the specific things about the Hall thing. The Judkins thing definitely sounds bad enough. Like, I just don't know if Hall did something that was, or if Hall was accused of, allegedly doing something that was as bad or worse than what Judkins is. But I would assume at least 5 games, therefore. But like, I really don't want to put any kind of comment as like I'm not an expert on it, so I can't really say that it's for no reason other than that had happened with Hall that way. No other reason.
Yeah, I think it's good to like draw on some precedent. Interesting that we have recent precedent from the Browns, from a Browns rookie from Ohio State to draw on. Yeah, apparently. However, how is this impacting, your view of this Browns backfield for your drafting interests?
I think it opens up quite a bit for Dylan Sampson, that wasn't there before. I think Jerome Ford, though, was already either way going to play more than most people were projecting. I haven't had a chance to check lately if this is still going on, but I know for most of the summer, Jerome Ford would regularly go undrafted in 18-round underdog drafts. And
correct.
At the time, I was thinking like, well, that seems stupid, but it wasn't like I wanted to go 50% exposure on Jerome Ford either. So I let it happen myself quite a bit. But I think Jerome Ford was going to play at least 400 snaps this year for the Browns, because he went into each of the last 2 years as the Browns' like designated passing down guy. And he ended up playing more than they planned in both cases because of the Chubb injuries. And so by design, the Browns would have only given Ford around that 400, 450, maybe 500 snaps that I think he was billed for this year, regardless of Judkins' status. I say that because through the last 2 years, Ford has clearly gained some amount of trust from Stefanski on those passing downs. And because I think Dylan Sampson is specifically a concern on passing downs, especially in blitz pickup. It seems like Sampson's pretty tough and everything, and he runs tough, runs with a lot of motor. I don't think you got to worry about the temperament with him, but he's just kind of small, doesn't have much anchor weight to him. And you can find plenty of tape with him at Tennessee where he kind of just looks lost on passing downs. Maybe that's something that could be attributed to coaching. Like maybe he just wasn't coached very well on that, and he'll just kind of pick it up now that he's in the NFL, getting coached by someone like Deuce Staley. But I'm expecting Sampson to mostly be a guy who is reduced to pretty much a rushing specialist and maybe some screen designs. But I don't think the Browns really want him out there for base package passing down situations. I think they want Ford out there in those cases.
So it looks like Ford's ADP over on DraftKings right now is 201. So now he is routinely getting drafted, but
like
still
16th still or something like that.
It's a little bit later than that, and Sampson himself just going a little bit ahead of him at 195. So the market seems to be still like rather tepid on both of those guys right now. I think that it's just like if Judkins is to miss significant amount of time, how do you really approach, I think people just don't know how the workload bit between Ford and Sampson would be divvied, but I think you give a pretty good summation of what to expect.
Yeah, Ford has been picking up the blitz for them the last 2 years, and he's fumbled only one time on something like 370 touches from scrimmage. So he's, I think, pretty clearly the guy Stefanski will go to for sort of stabilizing purposes. And Sampson's the guy who gives them maybe a little bit more big playability, but not necessarily. People kind of hyped Sampson as this burner type. They think he might be the guy who takes this backfield if Judkins is absent. But you look it up, Ford and Sampson have basically the same speed, and Ford is 10 pounds heavier. Ford has a lot of 40-yard carries for a guy who has played the snap count that he has in the NFL. So it's actually Ford, in my opinion, who's the big play guy of the two, in addition to the passing down guy. So I see it as just kind of, they'll rotate because Ford can't be a workhorse the way Judkins could. But I think a lot of people drafting Sampson, like his biggest fans, are assuming he'll start or has the potential to start. And I really don't think he has the potential to start if Ford is there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Ford is the one to target, especially if he is the less expensive of the two. Before we get on over to talking some best ball, we do have a message from our friends over at DraftKings.
Football season is right around the corner, and there's no better way to lock in your fantasy dominance early than with best ball on DraftKings, where you draft once and ride your roster all season long. And right now, DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million best ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another best ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second shot to win big. It's easy. Just draft your team once, no weekly management required, and let your top scorers automatically start each week. Across the whole season, every breakout star, every clutch play, every touchdown will count toward your quest for a share of $15 million. Look, I absolutely love doing these best ball drafts on DraftKings. Super easy, super quick. You don't have to worry about the waiver wire, all that in-season management. I'll tell you, so far, been drafting way too much of my guy Brian Thomas Jr., getting a lot of Chris Godwin, a lot of Jordan Mason later in drafts. It's been so much fun to enter these best ball leagues, try out different strategies, build out a portfolio of your favorite NFL players. You can download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's two chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. One per customer. Enter the Best Ball $15 million headliner contest by 9/4/25 to get one bonus entry. $20 entry fee required. Reward expires in 30 days. See terms at DraftKings.com/NFL-best-ball. Sponsored by DK.
And look at that. We are back. Thank you, DraftKings. Thank you to our guy, Nick Whalen.
1.75 speed, Nick Whalen, it sounded like. Sorry.
The dude's literate. What can you say? He's absolutely able to read at speeds that are otherwise impossible to people like us. However, with that in mind, let's talk a little bit of DraftKings best ball right now. You recently posted an article that is up on rotowire.com talking about some of your favorite late round targets, or at least people that you should be getting some exposure to. And as luck would have it, I did a draft last night, and I think it turned out okay, but there is some overlap in what I drafted versus what you wrote about. I want to start with late round Rams running back, and you mentioned Blake Corum in your piece as someone to consider. I was very in on Blake Corum last year as sort of a hedge against Kyron Williams. I don't want to fully speak for you, but I feel like that's the sense I got from you last year as well, and it didn't really materialize in Corum's case. So they bring in Jarquez Hunter out of Auburn. Impressive guy during his time on the Plains. I actually took Hunter at the end of the 16th round. Way different. As one of my last running backs, but I had some pieces of this Rams offense to begin with. I got Devontae Adams with my third pick. I took Matthew Stafford as my QB2. And I wanted to get Tyler Higbee a little bit later on, which I did, because I'm starting to get to the point where I'm having the third eye for Week 17 in the Rams. I think they play the Falcons that weekend, and I want some of that. So I wanted some Rams, but I did kind of, it was tough to choose between Hunter and Corum. How do you see it if you are taking one of these two guys late in your drafts?
Well, one great thing about DraftKings' 20-round format is that, especially at the prices that Blake Corum and Jarquez Hunter are right now in the ADP, you could easily just answer both. It's harder to make room for two guys in the same backfield like that, two lottery ticket flyers in the backfield like that in smaller formats. But in 20 rounds, you can just take Corum and Hunter back to back, and it makes totally good budgeting sense in my opinion. But I do rank Blake Corum ahead of Hunter pretty easily, actually, because I just see Corum's rookie year as non-applicable, not a significant enough sample to take anything from it. The way Sean McVay thinks, the way he kind of obsesses about the certain things that he does, the details that he fixates on that leads him to be so fond of a player like Kyren Williams, those are details that you can only prove to McVay in practice and becoming like truly familiar with him and vice versa. It's clearly mostly a trust related thing and not a thing based on results outside of blitz pickup. Like, admittedly, like Williams obviously is good at that, but Corum wouldn't have gotten any usage last year in, like the money situation. The money play calls were not going to him because categorically McVay would only put Corum on the field when things were least at stake or least likely to go well. So, and if nothing else, look at Kyren Williams' own rookie year. His numbers look the same as Corum's rookie year. So it was not enough of a sample to determine something like, well, Corum sucks. I don't think there's any reason to believe that. And I think Corum can only gain ground from here. I don't think he's going to become alienated from McVay or vice versa. I mean, Corum was a prolific workhorse running back at Michigan, and I think he clearly he produced much better than Williams did at Notre Dame, and he's a much better athlete than Williams, even though Corum is not particularly athletic. So again, the price though for both Corum and Jarquez Hunter on DraftKings is extremely affordable. $214 for Corum. You almost don't even need to really have an opinion about Corum being good. You could just at that price say, well, who cares if he gets if Kyren Williams sprains an ankle, then Corum pays off at this price, and I don't even care how good he is. Like, I think you can say something like that, and I think you can also believe Corum is probably better than you would assume based on last year's numbers. As far as Hunter goes, I think the problem here is just, while I like Hunter, by the way, I think he's pretty clearly one of the better pure runners in the draft. I say pure runner because I think we sometimes don't, we don't break up the subcomponents of a running back's game enough, and we kind of generalize too much instead of figuring out what they really specifically are good at, where they very specifically might lack something. And with Hunter, there are things that he lacks in terms of his polish and blitz pickup, and even as a receiver, I think he kind of looks a little bit off rhythm. But he's one of those guys where when you watch him with the football, you don't need to equivocate at all. It's like, that guy is tough to catch. Like, it's really tough to catch that guy and bring him down if you're chasing him. So Hunter has that going for him, and neither Corum nor Williams do. Williams and Corum are more, even ostensibly, they're just steady. They just get kind of what's there, more or less, especially Williams, and sometimes even less, I would argue. But with Hunter, it's he's got a bit of a horse blinders kind of thing going on. Like, he sometimes is a little bit too north-south minded, but he's north-south minded the way he is because his motor's hot and he's extremely aggressive, basically. So Hunter sees any space and he's just going, and he's going fast. And for how small he is, 5'9", 204, Hunter runs with more power than you would guess. He's much more powerful and much faster than both Corum and Kyren Williams. But Hunter is also pretty clearly the worst of the three in passing situations, especially blitz pickup. So with McVay being as picky as he is about that subject in particular, I can't really see Hunter getting much more than sort of draw plays and maybe a couple design screens here or there. I don't see him fitting into base package plans that much.
Yeah, that's my concern. In terms of like Hunter interest for this year, it's like, are we just going to walk into the same, trap that we did drafting Corum this time a year
Schedule
ago?
wise, yeah, I think so.
So you do get.
I will say some of these plays that Corum probably turned into like a 5-yard carry. Hunter can score on those from long distance, but the carry count and the snap count, I don't think can go any higher, really.
Okay, so that's all worth considering. But regardless, I am sharing my draft board from
Nice.
from last night, and again, grabbed Hunter in the 16th. Needed some depth at receiver. I'm totally sunk for week 8 in this particular build, but that's okay because I'm just going to dominate the rest of the weeks. But did get another guy you mentioned, Dyami Brown, with
Nice.
the second pick of the 17th round. So give us a quick snapshot on why you're liking drafting Dyami Brown on DraftKings right now.
Well, I just think that Brown will probably log the second most, and no worse could Brown log than the third most reps at the boundary positions for the Jaguars this year. But I would absolutely bet on Dyami Brown playing more perimeter snaps, more boundary reps than Travis Hunter, who I think A, is going to play fewer snaps than people are projecting in general, and B, I think he's going to be a very slot-oriented receiver when he is on the field. I think that makes sense for a lot of reasons. And it's not like a backhanded thing. It's in a more yet. It's just the de facto arrangement I have in mind when I picture Brian Thomas, who can line up everywhere, and they'll move him around a certain amount too. But Thomas is on the boundary, the X or the flanker, doesn't really matter. And then you have Brown as the guy who's basically doing the clearing routes. So it's not quite an Arian Smith level, clearing route specialization. I think Brown can make catches on the boundary, downfield, post routes, go routes. Liam Cohen's mentioned specifically that he likes Brown on screens. So I think that Brown will probably, log something like 750, maybe even 800 or more snaps this year. And I think everybody's projections are placing him something more around like 500 or maybe 600 snaps. So particularly if you're going with a Trevor Lawrence build, I feel like Brown is just one of those why not picks. It's as late as he goes. I happen to think Brown is pretty good. I happen to think Lawrence is good and is going to pretty easily have the best year of his NFL career to this point in 2025. So I like both of those guys, and I think at a price like Brown has, you can only go so wrong.
Yeah, you kind of opened my eyes to him a little bit in recent weeks, and I've been trying to kind of get a decent amount of exposure, especially like you're saying, like this is I'm drafting a lot of Trevor Lawrence. It's a kind of a no-brainer to get one of his starters late on in the draft. And folks, the comments, we love you guys because you're able to clue us into some breaking news. We finally have some, and it dovetails beautifully because it kind of makes my draft from last night look a little bit shaky because I did pursue a Chiefs stack that involved one Rashee Rice, whom I took with the 11th pick of the second round in Mario. According to Adam Schefter, a Dallas County judge just sentenced Chiefs receiver Rashee Rice to 5 years probation and 30 days of jail time that can be served during those 5 years stemming from his role in a multi-car crash in Dallas during the 2024 offseason. Now that the judge has ruled, the NFL can expedite its disciplinary process, and Rice is likely to receive a multi-game suspension. Look at me. I mean, I can't read quite like Waylon can, but I didn't mess that one up.
I didn't see all these comments. I just got slapped with so much news in the 2 or 3 seconds that I scrolled up.
So here it is. Yeah.
So yeah, that definitely. We were talking. Was it the last show, John, about how Rashee Rice would sometimes go into like the third round of some drafts, and those shares, they could still be vindicated in the sense that those teams could win it, whatever, by their other picks, but it's going to sting a little bit having for sure, 3, 4, however many games subtracted at the outset.
I would say so. Although, correlating piece there. I do have Xavier Worthy in the 5th round. I imagine that his ADP will come
Can't
up.
hurt.
So yeah, because he was a little bit of a tougher guy to click on in the 4th round, but with him falling to the 5th last night, I was happy to go with it. Obviously, I wish that I had grabbed like a Travis Kelce, where I took Jacoby Myers in the 7th round as a result of this. But regardless, if Rice is available for the fantasy playoffs, this could end up still being okay. But your wide receiver 1 missing upwards of a third of the season, difficile. It's tough.
Yeah, I think they're prepared to withstand it, but difficult for the Chiefs. I mean, but yeah, the fantasy investors who are paying like a third, or even I guess you could argue 4th round price tag, they need a strong playoff showing from Rice, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely need it. Our guy Michael wants to know: should we, based on the Schefter tweet where he says, the judge has ruled the NFL can expedite its process, again, likely resulting in a multi-game suspension. Do we think that starts week 1?
Yeah, I would assume that it has to start right away, but I guess, don't quote me on that. I don't know anything specifically. It just seems to make the most sense, I suppose. Hello, Michael, also.
What's going on, Michael? Yeah, we got our gaggle of friends here. We got Mile High Luke in here. We've got Jamie in here. Dustin's in here.
Hey, guys.
And of course, Uncle Ted singing the praises of Kamani Vidal earlier in the show. So the gang's all here. We love it. That's going to do it for our best ball segment, aka me complaining that I drafted something that is immediately like aging like milk from last night. But that's the price, the risk you run when you do fast drafts as opposed to slow drafts. Of course, DraftKings has those options for slow drafts if you want to be the guy in your league who waits for this type of information to
He's
act
raking.
on it.
He's rolling in it these days.
That guy is.
I love going 8 hours. Someone's gonna get suspended. I can feel it.
Yeah, I feel the pressure, the air pressure, the barometric pressure changing. Before we get on over to our discussion, deep dive of the day, my dog is here. We do have a message from our friends over at Fantrax. Is there something you wish your fantasy league had, or features that are missing from your current leagues? Bonus scoring, custom schedules, or playoffs? Deeper team settings? Well, look no further, because we have you covered with our friends at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Fantrax even offers college fantasy football leagues. And let me tell you right now, speaking of the customizability of Fantrax, I'm in a 60 round college football best ball draft right now. And we are unearthing stones that we didn't even know existed, and we're only in like the 12th round of this. So once this finishes up, just moments before kickoff of week 0, I'll have to report back.
That's almost like gang stalking. That's crazy. You have to find out about guys who are like not even on the official roster, probably.
Yeah, I mean it's
like we found out you're going to be on the team this year, so we're going to rank you.
It's going to be. Yeah, we're getting down there. Our guy in the industry, Jared Palmgren, titled it the Marianas Trench Draft, and I think that that's definitely fair. And really, you can only do that on Fantrax. Create or join a fantasy football commissioner league. Invite your friends and dominate your drafts this season. Fantrax is the top dynasty fantasy football platform in the industry as well. Fantrax is running a special promotion that you don't want to miss. Sign up for free at fantrax.com/rotowire today to enter for your chance to win a signed Jamar Chase jersey. Simply create a new league or bring over your existing leagues for more chances to win. Simply go to fantrax.com/rotowire and sign up today. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. All right, Mario, as we've been doing all summer long, we've been doing these kind of deep dives on particular teams, particular offenses that are of interest for us for fantasy purposes. this year. And I think the 49ers is a really good one. We can talk about, what you brought up in your job battles article when it comes to the Jauan Jennings situation here in a second, but just kind of setting the table. It does feel like it's like no longer a best kept secret that everyone expects this massive kind of bounce back from the 49ers. Jim Coventry wrote a great win totals article, loving the over 10.5 wins. I've heard other podcasters say that, we like the Niners to win the most game or have the best record in the NFL this season,
Wow.
And I think it's fair in a sense, because you look at last year, Brandon Aiyuk plays 7 games, and then is out for the remainder of the season. Ricky Pearsall misses the first, I think, 6-7 games of the season, and is kind of working his way into things. Christian McCaffrey only played, I think, 4 games, and Deebo Samuel getting dinged up at different points, and everything like that. Like, it was the season from hell for the San Francisco 49ers. And obviously Deebo Samuel's gone. Brandon Aiyuk is coming off the knee injury. So the full strength version of the Niners doesn't look as good on paper as, what it could have been a year ago. But I think that there's still reason for optimism. I think offensively too, it almost helps that the defense is probably going to be kind of bad. But I think as far as like your offensive environment is concerned, we should have a lot of weeks where the Niners kind of have to play full 60 minutes in order to get the win type of deal. Your thoughts kind of just generally on this Niners offense and how it looks now that it's a fair bit different, but also kind of similar from a year ago.
I was a little tiny bit leery of some of those more optimistic win total projections, but not because I'm concerned about the 49ers offense. The 49ers offense, I like quite a bit for fantasy. It's not as easy to know where to, other than McCaffrey anyway, it's not as easy to know where to target to find this, this gold that we suspect is laying around somewhere here. It's Kittle would also be an immediate suspect. But in my opinion, because of Jennings' weird situation and sort of short sample as a starter, the Aiyuk injury, it really isn't obvious, in my opinion anyway, how this offense will run, again, aside from the McCaffrey detail and aside from the assumption that Kittle will do some version of a lot. But I almost wonder, I guess I don't want to go too tangent prone right off the bat. I guess I'll start back at maybe Jennings, just because of his whole thing with not a holdout, but there's kind of like a bit of a Cold War standoff thing going on with him and the 49ers. Like, Jennings wants a new contract, or he wants to be traded if he's not given a new contract. And that's a weird situation. And it was already, in my opinion, a little hard to project Jennings, because while he had really, really good production last year, and while I think Jennings is some version of a good player, including perhaps even an above average starter, I think there's still pretty hard limitations with a guy who's running a 4.72 out of college. If Jennings is running a 4.75 today, he might be running a 4.8 next year. And I just I shouldn't say that I don't think a guy like that can keep producing like Jennings has, because he did it in multiple games. It wasn't he had that 1-3 touchdown game, but he had at least a few other really quality starts too. But if he does, if Jennings somehow keeps producing in 2025 the way he did last year, he would be the slowest receiver to have put up numbers like that in probably like almost 40 years. So I don't know. I think Jennings is probably more limited. I think he has probably seen his peak already. And in a way, if that's true, and especially if the 49ers agree, they might not be inclined to pay whatever he thinks he's worth, and might even be worth truly. And if Jennings if this standoff with the 49ers continues, then they're really, really thin on the boundary receiver reps. Like, they have Demarcus Robinson as sort of a designated third guy over there, but even his immediate event, he'll probably at most see, like, I guess this maybe a 1 or 2 game suspension, I suppose. But Robinson's the next guy up at the boundary receiver after Aiyuk and after Pearsall and Jennings, I should say. And I don't know. I can't see Robinson supporting a high target rate. Certainly not the rate that Jennings did last year. So the 49ers are in a tough spot, because it's like maybe Jennings isn't worth quite the money that he's asking for, but they probably can't win games without him as they're currently built.
So I did see someone postulate something kind of interesting where the escalators on his deal right now, if they just went ahead and guaranteed that could kind of make him whole for this year. I don't know if that's like a thing that they can do.
I think they'll seek a
at this stage.
short-term pay bump kind of thing.
Yeah, because I'm with you. Like, I think they absolutely need him. I think with the Aiyuk detail, with Deebo Samuel being gone, with Ricky Pearsall, as much as we like him, being relatively unproven, it's like they kind of need that steadying presence that Jennings brings. I feel like he's just like a hellacious blocker too. Like there's just like stuff that he does that's not going to show up in the box score that is really useful to that offense. And him just kind of like being this big bodied presence. Like I think that's something that Shanahan definitely values. So
yeah, Shanahan loves him.
Yeah. I love watching him play, but I think that, you kind of have like a good, idea of where those limitations are and why it's important to maybe not get over our skis. But at this stage, kind of expecting the Niners to make this one right with Jennings and not move him. And if they were to move him, any ideas on where would be a decent fit?
See, that just almost raises another obstacle because I can't imagine another team being willing to pay for Jennings what he would otherwise be worth to the 49ers. So the 49ers might not like the price they have to pay, but they might like the price they have to pay to get Jennings back in more than they like the deal they get for trading him elsewhere. Because I can't imagine they get more than like maybe a fourth. I don't think they would even get a fourth, honestly. So I don't think there's any, especially because if Jennings wants a new contract, then he could demand more from the next team than he does the 49ers,
Very true. So that's another potential blocker there. I was doing a little bit of thinking about where would make sense. I feel, and it's not just because he went to college there, but I do feel like the Titans would make some sense. I feel like they kind of need another guy opposite Ridley.
Yeah, he would also, like you said, fit the tone that the Titans are going for with trying to be a smash. They're going back to exotic smash mouth in 2025, and that's there's not what is Jauan Jennings if not exotic smash mouth?
I know, especially with the dyed hair and everything. That's as exotic smash mouth as it gets. And the red could still work for the Titans. Have a little bit of red flourish in their uniform color palette thing. Anyway, moving more onto the rest of this 49ers offense. Anything else on the Jennings front? Anywhere deeper that you would look as far as these receivers go in San Francisco? I know you liked Jacob Cowing as a prospect coming out, but I wasn't sure if you liked the fit here in San Francisco specifically.
The fit is a little concerning. I really think Cowing is good, and I think if he were on some other teams, he could more easily fit into the pre-existing game plan. It just makes me a little hesitant that Shanahan might not see Cowing as a boundary viable receiver. He might think he's only a slot guy. And I don't know if Shanahan is able to do the accommodating to feature a guy like Cowing like he could some other players. I think if Cowing were accommodated, he would produce. I can't tell if it's just a novelty kind of, trinket to a Shanahan to the way Shanahan looks at the offense. I will say though, I do like Ricky Pearsall a lot. Like we kind of mentioned him briefly. I think Pearsall is the guy to target in fantasy right now. Actually, I think I don't feel comfortable fading Jauan Jennings because especially if he plays like last year, I'll just straight up regret it. But I like Pearsall at his price either way. Even if Jennings were cheaper, I think Pearsall just is a good player who's projected to play a lot of snaps in an offense that we expect to be good. And I'm not sure that Pearsall's current price is fully confident on each of those points.
Yeah, so Pearsall, like on just kind of general PPR type of formats, goes a little bit later than I would have expected. I feel like on half point PPR, he goes a decent bit earlier than what I'm seeing here. I'm looking at more like 9th, 10th round type
He
of
is the
area for
vertical
PPR.
guy between Jennings and even Aiyuk once he's back. I think Pearsall still might go over the top more than either of those guys. So being concerned about his reception count is pretty warranted. But at the very least, in half point PPR, no concerns on my part, because I think we can expect Brock Purdy to throw 30 plus touchdowns. And I don't know. I think Pearsall is going for 8 or more.
I think so too, and that's I mean, that's an interesting point on Purdy. You know, like 30 touchdowns, not every quarterback gets there, but it's a pretty good setup, obviously, that he's got there. Let's go over to the top of the board here when it comes to the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey, seeing him creep up into the first round at some shops. At this point, I think he was more so like a 1-2 turn earlier on, but it seems like he's a guy that, coming off of a season like last year, mostly lost, of course, that every like little bit of news being positive in the idea of him being fully healthy, ready to go for the season, is kind of strengthening his ADP. Like you're not surprised to see him. I don't think go like 7th or 8th overall in a best ball draft right now.
Definitely not. I think we all understand the deal with McCaffrey is as simple as, if he plays whatever the magic number of games is, we'll all wish we had more shares. And if he falls short of that, of course, it's a bullet dodged if you don't have exposure in that scenario. But it's just it's a difficult, I think, line to toe. But you have to try to toe it to some extent. Like if you're a volume drafter, I should say, if you're a volume drafter, if you got more than 10 leagues. So I can follow the math, let's just say it's 10 leagues. Like, you don't want to have 0 McCaffrey shares. You'd ideally have, I don't know, 2 at least, or something like 2, maybe 3 if you're just kind of erring on the optimistic side. Because if he plays the whole year, those 3 teams are just categorically in pretty good shape right off the bat. And if especially if you're trying to talk about like high finishing, it might be difficult to finish high on teams that don't have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 guys in the first round. And McCaffrey can be that guy in general, and he can be that guy in terms of returns from the first overall spot. So it is a high cost if you're taking a 0 in the first round, and if McCaffrey continues to miss time with injury like he did last year. But 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it is, if he plays, he not just meets value there, he races way past it to the very first spot. So I personally myself need to get more McCaffrey exposure, because I have like a couple, but not enough, because I punted for a long time on like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to make of the durability thing. But with the reports coming in as they are, I can't keep ignoring it.
And if you're into stacking generally, I mean, I've mentioned this a couple times, that this off season, this draft season, but the way that the board shapes up, whether you are on full point PPR sites or half point, getting like kind of like the best parts of the San Francisco offense is pretty easy to do, like without having to like really jump ADP a huge amount. Like, you can easily draft McCaffrey and George Kittle with your first and like 4th picks, especially if you have like an early 4th round selection, and then get a couple rounds to do whatever else you need to do, and then you can circle back, get somebody like a Pearsall, and then top it off with Brock Purdy. And that's all I feel like pretty like easy to do. So you look at this offense again, like I was mentioning, and projects well. I think according to like the Vegas win totals, they have like the 3rd highest average points per game based on implied totals for this year. So Vegas, it seems to be pretty bullish on this offense. So therefore, getting a stack of it, especially one that's easy to pull off, I feel like is a detail worth paying attention to.
Yes, pairing Purdy with McCaffrey totally makes sense. In fact, it could be McCaffrey more than anyone who stands to gain fantasy points wise from the decline we suspect is in the 49ers defense, because as much as Purdy can make a lot of downfield throws, if they're playing catch up, if the 49ers are playing catch up more than they have in previous years, then it's especially checkdowns that tend to pile up, because it's like 1st and 10, we got to get a touchdown. Nothing else is going to suffice. You're not gunning it. Well, you're setting up some opportunity for the big play, but you're not pressing for it the way you would, like, a Hail Mary as an extreme example. But McCaffrey, if he's showing up in Purdy's progression as there for a likely 6 or more yards, which will absolutely happen in hurry up situations, Purdy will pull that trigger. Purdy will throw it to McCaffrey for the easy 6 so that he can be in 2nd and 4. That's just how Purdy. That's largely how Purdy gets these big play setups in the first place. Is like they get the defense biting down underneath. The big play is devised open downfield by Shanahan, and I think the time in between, there's going to be a lot of checkdowns to McCaffrey. I have a habit of I keep saying like Jahmyr Gibbs is my running back 1 this year because I think he's going to have a Marshall Faulk season. But what I should be saying is that I think Jahmyr Gibbs might have like a Christian McCaffrey season, because Christian McCaffrey has already been doing the Marshall Faulk thing. So that's there's big pass catching upside specifically with McCaffrey. So I think putting him with Purdy is not like a zero-sum thing. It's more likely to amplify.
Yeah, I mean, you're just McCaffrey's such a big part of that offense and such a big part of the passing game. Then you can certainly just view it as like cornering the market on the 49ers point output this year, and that's, like I said, expected to be like a pretty good one, the 3rd highest expected points in the league. We are getting some comments in the chat. Our guy Brainburst says that on the topic of the Niners, a bit just observing that Isaac Guerendo being overdrafted, and our guy Mile High Luke kind of chimed in and said that if McCaffrey is healthy, Guerendo is a 0. So that kind of goes back to the point you were making just a few minutes ago, where it's like there's a line that you need to toe when it comes to McCaffrey. Like, you can't be completely overexposed, because we've seen number of seasons from him go by the wayside due to injury, and he is getting up there. We're kind of reaching the end of the peak, at least we think, when it comes to McCaffrey. I think it honestly does help that last year was so much of like a 0, essentially, that there wasn't much to like recover from this off season. Not a lot of like bumps and bruises, heavy workload type of thing. But regardless, Guerendo kind of stands as an important figure in fantasy this year, just because if the answer to the question, like, does Christian McCaffrey get hurt, like if it's yes, then Guerendo, as like an 11th round guy, becomes very important potentially.
I think so too. I mean, I guess I split the difference a little bit between like what the comments were saying about Guerendo being a 0 if McCaffrey is healthy. I actually think Guerendo is going to play this year either way, but McCaffrey is the high leverage guy for sure, and Guerendo does have a lot of ways that it can go wrong for him, namely durability, but so many different types of durability. There's the hamstrings are always going to be the biggest concern with Guerendo. He has pretty much the worst hamstrings in the NFL for sure, even as a 2nd-year guy, and he got hurt other ways too. So I don't know. I am worried that Guerendo's just kind of got, I don't know, like maybe almost like that mitochondrial thing or whatever. It's like you just get hurt really easily or something. I have no idea. The guy is due for some good luck for sure otherwise, but he has literally never had it. I just the same want some Guerendo exposure, especially in best ball, because he's a 5-tool player when he's healthy. It's ridiculous. It's so agonizing the way that he's got all these this implausible combination of athleticism and ability as a football player, but a complete inability to stay healthy to this point, going on like 6 years in a row now. So the 1 year at Louisville is, I guess, the one time Guerendo had seemingly no problems over the course of a football season, but otherwise it's just been, really, really catastrophic injuries and nagging injuries too. He's gotten both.
Yeah, no, that was, like you said, an issue of his in college. I mean, it took him, having to leave Wisconsin, which is usually a great place to be, a running back, goes to Louisville, kind of splits time, gets himself onto the draft radar, has the crazy combine, and then has some great games last season. But it is interesting the dynamic where it's like you're talking about needing some bad injury luck from McCaffrey for Garendo to work out, but Garendo needs good injury luck for his own part, given his lengthy injury history.
John,
Mm.
on DraftKings in that article I actually mentioned, because of the 20-round format, I even draft draft Jordan James in that 19th or 20th round area, because if McCaffrey misses time and if Garendo misses time, which the second is always sort of high probability. So if McCaffrey misses time, we can almost just on that basis alone assume Jordan James will play this year, because we can just about assume that Garendo will miss time this year.
Yeah, so that's an important detail. And Jordan James, obviously next to free in drafts. And then your thoughts on George Kittle for this season. He goes as tight end 3, a little bit behind guys like Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. I feel like almost like in terms of like draft capital value on top of what you could be getting from Kittle. Like, he's the tight end 1 in the sense that you don't have to spend a second round pick on a tight end, but you could have like pretty like primo production overall from him.
Yeah, I really like Kittle this year. His price is a little difficult to execute. It's a little difficult to execute your ideal roster with Kittle in most best ball. I guess it's probably this is probably the case ADP everywhere, but he's on a little bit of an island, right? Like, it's we know Bowers and McBride reliably go in a certain place, and Kittle is the guy in between those 2 and 4, and there's kind of a gap on both sides. I feel sometimes I miss Kittle sometimes when I'm drafting, because I just feel like it's a little too early, and then he goes before my next pick, even when I'm kind of hoping he'll make it to the next one. But when I do pick Kittle, I don't feel bad about it exactly. It's like, even when I kind of got to reach, it's like, well, at least I don't. It's not that I don't have to worry about the position, because Kittle can get hurt, but all tight ends can get hurt. And Kittle has the most one game upside probably even at full point PPR, where even though we're projecting him to have like 30 or 40 fewer catches than Bowers and McBride or whatever, I'm still expecting Kittle to be pushing 10 yards a target in any given season. And I'm expecting him to be pushing for the end zone regularly. And especially this year, I'm kind of assuming Jauan Jennings will see some regression even if he plays, right? And if Jennings does regress, and even if I assume McCaffrey picks up some part of it, the details of Aiyuk's initial absence, the details of Pearsall's hamstrings the last 2 years, these are reasons that I think you can consider. There's a chance this year that Kittle gets to become basically the leading receiver in this offense for some stretch of time, not by design and not for the whole year, but as like a game plan adjustment because somebody else is hurt or whatever. I think Kittle can go bonkers in a given week the way like no other tight end can. So
yeah,
especially in best ball, I think it makes sense to reach for him, but I'm starting him every week if I draft him in redraft. So it's not as if I'm, there's no risk of benching him. So I guess you could almost say the exact same thing in redraft too.
Yeah, and I think it also helps the Kittle and other Niners for fantasy, just the fact that they get to play a weaker schedule this year. Like, for years they've had to play division winner type of schedule. That's not the case this time around. So that just is one of those things on the periphery that kind of helps steer you towards, feeling good about the 49ers for this year. Before we finish out here, we do have one more message from our friends over at Ultra GM. Is your team's GM messing it up again? If you have ever thought that you could be a better GM than the guy running your favorite team, you should check out Ultra GM. Ultra GM is a revolutionary new take on fantasy football that makes you the general manager of your favorite team. Start with the team's full roster and build it through the draft, free agency, trades, and even the practice squad to create your ideal team. No fantasy football platform or GM simulator has ever provided the degree of realism and engagement that Ultra GM offers, and none has ever given you the opportunity to manage the team that you love and care for the most. Compete against family, friends, and even your team's real GM to see who is the ultimate GM. You think you can do better than your team's GM? Visit ultragm.com to prove it. We do have a super chat here from Michael, but
Hey,
no
Michael.
question, just giving us a shout, much appreciated. Michael,
you're too generous. At least make us work somehow.
Yeah, give us
Tell us
throw us a dynasty
sing
question,
a silly
man.
song or something.
Can we?
Well, don't do that. Just ask us a question.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I can't pat my head and rub my belly at the same time. You know, I ain't as good as I once was. Let's see. I guess any other things to add here when it comes to the 49ers for this season?
Yeah, not to extremely bury what could arguably be a lead-worthy story, but Brandon Aiyuk is a tough part of the puzzle too. I don't know what to tell anybody how to handle Aiyuk. I think it's fair to be some version of optimistic, I guess, especially if the price is at some certain point where the risk is negligible enough that the upside justifies it. I don't know what that number is. I don't know how to call it. And it's also reasonable for people to be pessimistic about Aiyuk because, 2 ligaments torn, coming back from the middle of the season almost, or week 6 or whatever it was. So it would not, I'll say this, I'll be surprised if Aiyuk plays week 1. I almost, to the extent that I'm invested in Aiyuk, I almost hope he doesn't play those first 4 weeks because I'd like him to come in as healthy as possible so that he can, as opposed to last year, so that he can just lock in and go in a way that's steady and well prepared. So I think even if you're assuming Aiyuk misses those 4 games, if you do believe the premise that he might become their wide receiver 1 from that point, then some significant price, i.e. higher than the price he tends to go, would be justified, because at that point you're almost talking like a Rashee Rice kind of balancing act. It's like, well, he's missing 4 games and that sucks, but what if he only misses 4 games? And what if he just, what if he's the man when he does come back? Weird things do happen. That Odell Beckham's rookie year, he missed all of training camp in the first 4 or 6 weeks or whatever with some hamstring injury, and he came back. He was just like the best receiver in the NFL as a rookie, pretty much. So that's the weirdest possible way it could go. Aiyuk having a good season this year and beating his ADP would be less weird than that, I think.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I've got like 10% Aiyuk or so in my portfolio right now. Little light on Jennings, definitely light on Christian McCaffrey. Only like
I'd
6%.
rather have Aiyuk than Jennings. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but again, I do that. I say that with anxiety either way because I'm not eager to fade Jennings. I just feel like I kind of have to cut someone out a little bit, and for me, it's Jennings.
Yeah, I think if you look at it from like a tools perspective, it's pretty obvious that Aiyuk has the edge there. It's just a matter of when exactly he comes back. I think that there's some reporting that he was looking all right in like mini camp or something like that.
It seems like it's going about as well as anyone could hope for now, knock on wood.
Yeah, so bear that in mind. I have Ricky Pearsall on a third of my teams on a certain best ball site. So maybe I can calm that down. I don't know.
Love that for you, John.
But yeah, I'm big on getting more of this Niners offense this year, and I think that we've done a good job of covering the best ways of going about it. But I think with that, we have covered everything that we needed to on this year edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors. Big thanks to DraftKings. With it being best ball week and everything like that, get on over to DraftKings and check them out. Big thanks to our friends over at Fantrax as well. And quick plug for Fantrax. I'm going to be participating in a 50-team college football draft this weekend. I think I'll be streaming that on my Twitter from like 5 p.m. Eastern to 7 o'clock or so. And then we're not going to stream the whole thing. That would take years. That would not be good, but we'll get you a good snapshot there. So give me a follow on Twitter, and you can check that out. I think one of our colleagues, Steve Belanda, is going to be in that as well. And then big thanks to our friends over at Ultra GM. But that's going to do it for us here. If you haven't signed up at RotoWire just yet, you want to check us out, 15% off any subscription. Go to rotowire.com, use the code YouTube15. You'll get a little 15% off discount. Very useful, especially this time of the year. We got Mario's articles that you can check out. We've got all sorts of tools and rankings and customizable stuff for your fantasy leagues, all that good stuff. So please go ahead, check us out if you haven't already over at rotowire.com. That's enough filibustering from me. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.